So we already started Oiswov, and we discussed it to some degree, but I feel not sufficiently. So we'll start again. Of course, we'll be that much ahead. Oiswov on the bottom of page Beis. Vezehu hatam. That, in fact, is the reason. The fact that kelim have the effect on the ohrot, so that the ohrot would get the mahus, the sense of reality that the kelim have. Bezehu, this too is the reason. This refers to that what we discussed, that there is, that in ohrot v'kelim there is a perfect union. The establishment of ohrot and kelim is not that there are two unrelated things, but they're somehow brought together. But ultimately they are actually mislabesh, they correlate and they find a commonality. And at the level of commonality, this is what the slapshus is. The deeper reason for the hislapshus is not just a commonality, but rather, in fact, because this is the nature of the ohrot. They are ohrot pnimi'im, meaning that they inherently have a mission, and they want to imbue them in their Ayin, they themselves, into the place where they can fulfill their mission. They're not just chitzonius, a makif. I'm here and you can benefit from my presence. They're ohrot pnimi'im. Because they're ohrot pnimi'im, this is why they mislabish in the kelim. They want to actually bring to the kelim the refinement and the life element of the ohrot. As a result of that, the kelim bring out from the ohrot such inyonim that the only kelim can bring it out. The ohrot themselves would not be able to find it in themselves. And the reason that the kelim have that effect on the ohrot is that the ohrot are interested. They are pnimi'im. They're interested to have a relationship with the kelim. Therefore, they're mislabish in the kelim to the fullest, and the kelim bring out in the ohrot inyonim that are exclusively kelim type inyonim. As we already spoke many times, and so I want to bring up the mashal, so to speak, that which demonstrates and illustrates this concept in a very tangible manner. And that is the simple inyan of a kelim. When you have water and you have a kelim, then you have water in a kelim. Now, water in the river, water in the ocean, water in a lake or in a sea, is just water for whatever that means. doesn't have a particular function identified. Excuse me. When you put water into a cup from which a human being can drink, you have identified in the water an element, an aspect that in and of itself it is there, but it is totally camouflaged. The water is in a different world than feeding a human being through his mouth a little drip of water. This aspect, that water actually has this mission to feed a human being in a human manner, not just overwhelm him with water, but to feed him with little sips, as we always speak about what is the human manner of partaking of food. This is brought out in the water by the keli. But when it is mislabish in the keli, and this inyan is brought out, yes, indeed, this inyan is brought out in the water itself. The water lends itself to this. The water has that initial mission. It's never meant that a human being has to drink water, but it's never meant that he should jump into the lake and drink water. He has to drink water. He has to be a human being, and the lake has to be a lake, and there has to be bridged. The lake has to be brought to the human being, and that is via the keli. The keli reveals in the lake, in the water of the lake, an aspect that it itself is in a totally different. It's beyond it completely. What do we say? That what is water? Water cover the riverbed completely. They engulf everything where they are. That's what water find every crack and crevice, and they fill everything. Water is not meant to be limited and stay in a certain finite, demarcated area. They're meant to spread out everywhere. This same water that is mechase al hayam have an element inherently in them, the ability to be contained in a cup. But when you look at the water spread out in the sea, you don't see that at all. The keli reveals it in the water. Just one more comment on this. This is the reason that human beings can be eating, losing sense of self-respect as they are consuming the food. Like I said many times, if you have a loaf of bread, yes, it is for human consumption, but it's not made for it right now. It's just bread. When it's become bread fit for human consumption, when it's cut into slices, and the slices into slices, then you see this is prepared for the human being. Like this is his bread for the shelf, for the freezer. It's not bread for human consumption. This is where the human being loses himself, loses the sense of self-respect. He says, hey, me, who cares? The water is the main thing. I'll take water whichever way I can take it. Mistake. The Rebbe should create the water in the manner that it should serve the human being. and serving a being. This is why there is the keli into which the water is put, which is served to the human being in the most honorable manner. Okay. Always use the opportunity. And this is because the kelim are poiling the oiris. Liyesh kimhus hakelim. So that the oil would be kimhus hakeli, like the mahus. Mahus means like the reality of the keli itself. In other words, when you look at water in a keli, you don't see it as water covering the riverbed. You see it as water having a one narrow function, an important one, but exclusively to serve the human being. Now this is the motion. Now we're going back to the reality, the nimshul itself. The oiros become like the keli as a result of the hislapshus in the keli, and the keli actually affect the oil and becomes like the keli. Where do we see this? As in the case that all as his havos in the effect of his havos of the creation. I have something that's, so to speak, on my tongue, the tip of my tongue and on top of my lung, but I never had the opportunity to bring it this way. And perhaps here we're talking about his habus, how this is oiros and kelim. And to understand these words in this mimer, we would need to focus in on the following. This is what the Rambam says. The foundation of all foundations and the pillar of wisdom is later to know that there is a first being. To know that there is a first being. And from the truth of his presence, all that is present comes. So if we examine these words, we say this. There is a first being. Of course there is a first being. That cannot be argued because how come there is anything? There has to be a source to anything. But the Rambam does not stop there. And he says that everything that exists is actually a manifestation of Amitis Himotzi, of the truth of his existence, of his presence. In other words, that this first being did not merely provide for all existence in an unassociated manner, allowing it to be. No. Its quality of being, of existence, permeates all existence. In other words, what this means is that when you see any nimtza, going back to the moshel of the cup and the water, you see water in a cup. Is this some kind of a different water than the one that was in the river? No. This water is attesting to the fact that there is water in the river. This water is attesting to the fact that there is water in the lake, and that there's a whole process of filterization and so forth. This is not something that It's like a distant cousin, unrelated. This is a direct trace, direct representation of the original water coming from the lake or coming from the spring and so forth. Except that, what happened? This water went through, the water from the lake, the water from the ocean went through a whole system of filtration and tzimtzum until it camouflaged, it hid all its infinite qualities. And instead of drowning everything that's in it, it limited itself to producing just one little functional element, and that was put into a cup. And this which in the cup, that now has a function that was there in the same in the original thing, but there you could not get that function at all. Because if you jump in the lake, that all of a sudden you drown.
The point here is that...
One second, I'll come to the point. The point here is this. The creation is a godly creation. There can only be anything existent in the presence of its source. There is no such thing as existent in absence of the godly presence. But the godly presence per se is something, is concealed, is hidden, and it comes through in a very functional and limited manner, to the extent that it can be limited to that which you can be contained in a cave. And the keli now represents this oil. But as we said, the keli represents this oil. The keli does not dissociate it, does not break it away, but it has transformed the oil to that level, to that degree, that now you see only that function in the oil. But it's the same oil. That's why in the creation there is the godly reality in the creation. Okay, so let's go back inside. As in the case of piyulas and mizhavos, the effect of the creation. How does the creation come about? You have to understand. The effect of the creation is based on the principle that Ihu, the Garmoye refers to the Kalim. Garmoye means the bowl, so to speak, the container. And Ihu is the oil. Is Chad, is one. Which means the Kalim have the quality like the oil itself. Libroi, they are one to the extent Libroi Bahan, to be able to create Bahan through them, using the Kalim. May Ayin Liyesh, to create with the use of the Kalim, May Ayin Liyesh, from Ayin into Yesh. Ayin, now we understand by the Moshe and so forth, Ayin means the godly reality itself. The godly reality itself, just like Lahabel in the Moshe of the water in the ocean. Can you say what the function of this water is? the water in our earth occupy more place than the dry land itself. You cannot tell what is the world primarily created for, to house water or to house dry land. Identifying a functional element in this water requires a whole process. As we said before, after all is said and done, and after the whole process is going through until you've identified the yesh, a particular function, it is still the very same water. Except the kelim had drawn out and revealed in the water a certain function. This is what he says. The creation is through the kelim. What does that mean? And at the same time, we say that it's one thing with the ihu. It means the following: the hizhavos where the hizhavos, the actual power to create, is alidei ha'oir dafka. That can only be alidei ha'oir. It is the power and the status of the oir that has the quality to create the yesh miyayin. What is the oil so special? What does the oil have? And it says in Tanya, why does the oil have the ability to create me'ayin le'yesh? Lefi shehoy mein hamoy. Because that the oil is mein hamoy of the ain, of the similarity. It has a very close proximity and very close relationship to the moir. Moir means the source of the oil. Moir means the luminary. Let me stop you for a moment. The reason I have to stop is because everybody here are educated people and says, oh yeah, I know the sun produces light by combustion and all kinds of different energy sources. It's really quite a feat. This is not what I mean by moir. As we said many times, in the moshe, the moir of the sun, the inyan that the sun is moir, is not the result of any kind of activity on the part of the sun. Miracle over miracle, however you want to understand it. The fact is, the sun is giving off light for thousands and thousands and thousands of years without any diminishing, any changing, any losing of its energy, losing of its fuel. Because this light that the sun is bringing forth is a light that is coming from the essence of the sun. It's not something that he has to reproduce. As it says in the Chassidus, that the sun is etzem bihiri. The whole principle of etzem eludes us. Because etzem is not a logical presence. Etzem means an essence. As we said many times, in our world, if we understand it in our world, we are lucky. As we said many times. Taking it on a gross level, what would the world be without a human being? We've gone through this exercise many times. And we all recognize that the world, with all that exists over there and all the different creatures and so forth, without a human being's presence, is a non-entity. What do you mean it's a non-entity? The tree doesn't grow, the animal doesn't roam. Of course it does. But it has no etzem, it has no essential significance. Nothing is happening. The Gemara has an expression that is a good and appropriate illustration of this concept. The Gemara says, Zovin v'zovan tagri yikra. Somebody is in business. And what does he do? He buys a loaf of bread for $10 and sells it for $10. Look what I accomplished. I'm a businessman. I'm selling bread. So Gemara says, Zobi v'zovim tagra yikra. Nobody will go in order to get the title of being a businessman to buy something for $10 and resell it for $10. It does not give him that title of being in business. He is doing the functional element, but he's not a business person. He doesn't get that title. In the world, all that's taking place, all the roaming, all the animal life, as much as it is active and so forth, it remains the same.
Comparing the presence of man to the presence of the sun.
Of man to the presence of the sun?
Are we sort of paralleling?
Okay, you know what? Hold it. Just follow it. I'm using different things to be able to focus in on certain points. There's a whole creation. And we all sense there's something missing. There's nothing real in there. Why? Because the whole creation accomplishes just that there should continue to be a creation. This is like Zovin the Zovin, Tiger. He's active. Look with him. Nothing happens. The human being is in a different position. The human being, he is in a constant state of innovation. He reveals constantly, this is what the human being is. To bring out in the creation qualities that are hidden before his touch. This gives the creation.
Hidden or that are significant?
What?
That are hidden or that have meaning? I mean, he brings out things what's hidden, or he brings out some value, some.
The creation was created so that the human being will bring out these values. They're inherently contained, they're inherently hidden there. But the human being brings out its true meaning. And that's in a completely different way. Like before that, it was completely concealed.
We've been speaking the whole time about the awe, since it comes from a medium soil. The awe, since it comes from a medium soil, from the Eibishter, as l'chein, it has some of this quality. It contains those qualities, and the cadence.
One second. Let me get back to it. 1 second.
No.
We have too many side streets here.
No, it's a.
Let me just finish the scene, okay? I started saying that the principle of an atzim is extremely elusive in our world. Because our world does not recognize. I said the minute you say oir, at that moment you begin to think about combustion. But we're saying no. There's a different meaning to this oir. This oir means the presence of the sun, not the effect, the action of the sun, but the presence of the sun. Like in our moshel of the host, it's not what the host is serving; it's the presence of the host. Because there's a certain quality in the human being, and we said the world without human being, in human being presents a quality that is real, that is essential, it brings a certain sense of reality to the world. The creation, coming back to the scene, the creation is the creation is through the oir. The creation can only be from the oir, cannot be from any other quality. As it says in Tanya, and why is it that the creation is only from the oil? What does the oil possess that other levels do not possess, and allow the oil to have the power to create Ayin because the oil is approximating the moir himself. As I started, this is where we start. Like that's the real effect of the sun's presence, of the light, is the presence of the sun itself. Except that it is given to us in the form of light. As we've gone through this exercise many times before. The union that the moir, the sun, is a moir, and in the sun, it said the oil is an ina atzmi, etzem behiri. Means, as I said before, the sun does not do anything to produce this oil. The very presence of the sun, that is oil.
That is what?
That is oil. The difference between that oil and oil as we perceive it in our world is that in our world, when we perceive oil, light comes to a place that's dark, which means there was darkness and now there's light. And the whole light element that's produced using energy is an artificial light. It could be and could not be. There is no atzmi element in this light. Light in the sun is in a different caliber completely. I've said many times. Just like darkness by us. Nobody's asking, is going to ask, how was darkness, what creates darkness? The absence of light automatically brings darkness. Because that's the essential presence of the earth. In the sun, light is on the same level of reality as darkness vayas.
So
It's an etzem here, it's not etzem here. This is its presence. How can there be such a presence? How can there be such a presence? Like all presence, this is a godly creation. There is no natural means of explaining it.
One says it's like the burning bush in the sun. So, yeah. So the one
It's a godly creation. You have to go back to the first day of creation. Very first day of creation. It says there, it was darkness on top of the deep. And God said that there be light, and there was light. Why does it have to create light? Create the luminary, light automatically will be there. 4 days later, God illuminated the whole necessity of creating light. He made a sun, and automatically there was light. So we see right there, to what extent we understand it, light is a creation, is a godly creation per se. But this creation, God had permitted, had allowed that there be real light in the world. Real light means that it is on par with darkness in terms of its reality. And this is why the Gemara says that this light cannot be properly absorbed by the world. It's either world or there's this light. That's where this light was concealed, as we spoke many times.
Either it's an etzem or it's a creation.
It's a creation that was created by the etzem. It is definitely a creation. But in this creation, the etzem had given the world an essential quality. It's all because of the creation.
Well, he created darkness too.
He created darkness too.
Essential is equivalent to truth.
Huh?
And essential, that you say, it's equivalent to truth. Gives the presence of truth.
The question is, put it simply, just like, till now we're focusing on the awe. My question is, just like the keli brings out this essential quality of the awe that it contains everything, so why do you totally focus on the awe? What about the keli itself? The fact that keli, just like man brings out the truth in the world.
Okay, you're a little bit jumping the gun, but what makes this usable, meaningful to the human being, the water inside or the keli?
The keli.
The keli. If I gave you the keli empty, what are you going to do with it? Throw it in the garbage. Right? Mm-hmm. So what's your question?
But the fact that the keli can bring out.
Yeah, but without the oil, there's nothing to the keli.
Fine.
I tested it now, yes.
Rabbi?
No, but one second, that's
Okay.
I ask you to please stay focused on what we discuss. The reason I'm going all over is because I want you should understand every point by point. Otherwise, so he says like this: the creation is alidei ha'oyer dafka, exclusively, emphatically to the oil. Why? Lefisha ha'oyer mein ha'moyer. Because the oil, only the oil has the quality that it's me'ein ha'moyer, representative of the moyer. it has an element that is akin. Me'er means akin to the moyer. What is the moyer? The moyer, again, and this is where we stop. Moyer does not mean something that is able to produce light. Moyer is that has this light on an essential level. Doesn't have to produce it. Like Atzmi, Hu Mehuse ve'atzmuse, which is the moyer is Mehuse ve'atzmuse. The reality, the godly truth itself. This godly truth itself, that is exclusively, that provides, that enables the whole creation. This is what is represented in the creation. Shehu levadoi, which means that only he alone, bekoichoi v'yicholto, it is within his capability, lahaves v'yesh mi'ayin, to bring forth a yesh mi'ayin, a presence out of non-presence. Because that his presence is not presence dependent, he is able to create yesh mi'ayin. Atzmi. As I said, the principle of Atzmi is something which is totally elusive in our world because it does not exist here per se. The world cannot produce something that's an Atzmi. Just as we talked about the sun not losing its power and so forth over thousands of years, there's a whole big debate now, a whole scared people are talking about global warming, which makes sense. If the world had to sustain itself by virtue of what it can produce a certain amount of energy, of oxygen, a certain amount of air and so forth. And if that's what is dependent, yes, it is a finite thing, and it can overrun itself. It has a finite resource, and that resource can be exhausted. But the world does not sustain itself on the basis of its own resources. The fact that there's a world this morning is not because there was a world yesterday.
That's the few less wars.
The fact that there's a world today is not due to the fact that there was a world yesterday. There is a resource in the world that is not part of the world at all. That is bli gvul. That's godly. And the whole mitzvah of the world is yesh mi'ayin.
Just keep Shabbos 6 days.
What?
We keep Shabbos because 6 days Rabshah created the world.
I'm sorry, kid.
Shabbos.
Yeah.
Because 6 days Rabshah created the world.
Right.
And Shabbos, it sounds that it happened once, and that's why we.
Chas v'shalom to say this, and understand what that means. Just as we're saying over here, since I know the time, what time is it?
10, 12.
10 to 10, okay. Huh?
10, 14, whatever.
10:14.
10 for it. Okay, 10. Okay, so there's no time. The Rebbe Shirkur created the world in one instant. whole phenomenon which created the world in 6 days, and the 7th day, and the whole cycle of 7, and month, and year, and all that. This is in order that this is in order to provide a kelim in the world so that we should be able to relate to the creation. By us keeping Shabbos and keeping these 6 days and we are experiencing with the Meibush in the creation. And the Meibush wants us to be partners with him. And this is why he created the world in this organized and limited fashion, so that we should be able to conceive of it and partner up with him. So this is like the Keli. But the resource that creates this Keli is infinite. It's constantly rejuvenated. Every week, every day, every week, every year, we say it's a new cycle. Rejuvenated completely from Ayin. Especially Rosh Hashanah, we say this is a complete rejuvenation of the whole entire creation. Every day is a rejuvenation, every week is a rejuvenation.
It's talking in the Tanya that every hour of the day has a different ashparas.
That's right. So we have to understand that this is not the way things. The way we understand, as I said, we understand the thing. If we're left to our own desires, we'll say, "Oh, the sun is producing energy by combustion inside, turning to the sun." And this is the whole resource, the whole source of light and warmth in the world. And then we're perplexed. How is it going on indefinitely without any change? And we find all kinds of convoluted explanations. You have to understand. What's the pasuk? I can't see think of the words in the pasuk. The pasuk it simply says, the Rebbe created the world and commanded it to stand there forever. That command, this is a godly command. This is not a natural phenomenon in the world. And this is the miracle that the image is showing us. You know something? I created the world, but I'm there with you. The Horaya. I'm rejuvenated all the time.
Says Hashem is the word of God. The word of God stands in the heavens forever. So that's what we're talking about.
Well, there's many ways of presenting. Okay, just one of the. We have to focus in on a certain aspect. Excuse me, called atzmi. Atzmi is, as I said, to conceive. We cannot in our seichel conceptualize this whole thing. But that is what we are observing. Chokhmah, the pure Chokhmah, is able to relate to it, not to understand it, but to relate to it. And this is what he's saying. The creation is from Atzmus, from Atzmus. Who levade bekeichel havet yesh miyai. Only he has the koyach to create yesh miyai. And then you continue on that same line at the end of the top line. The keach his havus who be Atzmus dafka, which means that the koyach for his havus, for bringing things into existence, is be Atzmus dafka, is exclusively in Atzmus. His havus, the principle that things exist is not the result of the interaction between the various things. It's a godly phenomenon. Ubo alidei ha'oir, and from Atzmus it comes alidei ha'oir via the oir. What is the oir? The oir, as we spoke many times, the oir is that which tells us, which the Atzmus tells us, I'm here. That's what the oir. Without the oir, the Atzmus is completely concealed. Oir means the Atzmus makes itself present. But in what way does it make itself present? It makes itself present at its sense of reality, not in a certain, in a limited fashion. I'll give you light, I'll give you cold, I'll give you heat. Just its reality is being given, like the Rambam says. It is the truth of His presence that provides for everything to exist. So you ask the question, how does everything exist? There is no inhabitants in the world to answer this question. There is absolutely no worldly explanation how the world continues to be. And therefore, from the worldly perspective, wait a second, global warming, it's going to eat itself up. Exhaust its resource. If we were to rely on the resources that the world can reproduce, yes indeed. In our time, in our point of history, there are phenomenal things that occurred in the past 100 years, 200 years. Not that long ago, the entire population of the world was counted in the millions. 5 million was a huge number. And people were concerned. How are we ever going to feed if we continue to expand? How are we going to feed
Malthus.
I'm sorry?
Malthus was the English.
How are we going to feed?
Economist.
How are we going to feed an expanded population? We have to contain the population. There's not going to be enough food to go around. Not only is not going to be food to go around, there's not going to be a place in the world for them. Every person is allowed a pitera 4 amos. How are you going to find 4 amos for every human being? Baruch Hashem, we have, today we count the world by the billions, not in the millions. And there's food to go around. We drown, we throw food into the sea just to maintain a certain market value. What does this tell us? This is what the Baal Shem Tov says, that the earth has hidden secret powers that the Rebbe has imbued, has hidden, concealed in it, that no one ever will be able to fathom what that is. The earth is a very finite ball. But there is a godly force behind it, in it. It can never be fathomed. It can never be exhausted. Never be exhausted. Because it represents what? Amitis himotzoi. It does not present us as something that is created, that has a beginning and an end. It presents the truth of his own presence. It's a created entity, but there's no beginning to this creation. This is within the purview of Atzmus itself. Koyach HaYezavos will be Asmodavka. This koyach is contained only in Atzmus. Bo alidei ha'oir, and it comes through the oir. Okay, so the creation is through the oir. So this is step number one. It comes through the oir. Now we have to come to kelim. What is the kelim about? However, mehoir atzmoi, from the oil itself, harei ef sheli es mitzius yesh. From the oil itself, clearly it is impossible that there should be a mitzius yesh. It's meant a mitzius yesh, a mitzius that is identified by its presence. Yesh means it has parameters. It has dimensions. The Alter Rebbe says that the criterion for world is that it is definable and identifiable in terms of time and space. This is the pshat yesh. But the oil, as we said before, the oil is an oil laki. It is not definable in terms of time and space. This in from time and space, it's not time now to discuss it, we will in Mitzvah. But this is what the Rebbe says, from the oil itself cannot be a Mitzius Yesh. Because a Mitzius Yesh means this, that it exists because, like the definition in physics, what is a Mitzius? What does it mean something exists? It occupies space. Matter, it occupies space. This is what defines its presence. The oil defines this completely. There's a truth to existence. It's not relative to the fact that it occupies space. So how can from the oil, which is an essential reality, come something that's a yesh that depends on its manifestations, on its effect? It's a yesh. This, in fact, is the meaning of we say Havaya Echad. Havaya, this refers to this is Shem Havaya. The first Shem Havaya is called Shem Ha'etzem, a Shem that is referring to Hashem Himself. Is Echad. Echad means that it's all just one. There are no multiple things there. Which means the mitzad Shem Havaya, that from the perspective of Shem Havaya, Harei Ha'olam Beis. So from that perspective, the world Gam le'achas in his havu, even after they were already created, Hein b'bchinas bitl b'tachlis. They are in a state, as worlds, they are in a state of bitl b'tachlis, of the ultimate inyan of bittul and non-existence. Okay, eventually sometimes we'll have a chance to discuss these things. V'hainu, but what it means is Shem Havaya Atzmei, that from this Shem Havaya, from this Oir, what's called Shem Havaya, Yevshar Liyis Mitzius Hayesh. From that it is impossible that they should come forth, there should be a Mitzius of Yesh. Using the mishalim that we have developed, we had this a very clear, very good reference in this host and guest illustration. We have to understand when we give the mashal of a host, and everybody senses that there's something very unique, very special in this concept of a host. No matter what is being served and what is being given, this is all a derivative. And the real truth is the presence of the host. And this is so true to us, and none of us are really able to explain. This goes to a much deeper sense in our intellect than we can identify and explain. God forbid someone who loses that sense he is lost in worldliness. He lost his human sense. There's a certain Ayin that said the Chochmah we can relate to Anin Atzmi, to an essential truth. But then, God forbid, if we say, "Oh no, I'm going to understand what that is," this is suicide.
I'm going to understand what this is, meaning I'm going to define it and put it in my
I'm going to find
pocket.
it, grasp it, and put it in my pocket.
Understand what the human relationship is?
What the human reality is. Human reality is not a worldly reality, it's a godly reality, it's a neshama reality. And there's no way for us to define it. This is where we say, okay, yeah, that's what God made. Miracle, okay. It's okay. So, when we're coming back to our host, Moshe. And the host is serving you dinner. And he gives you 5 courses. He gives you another 5 courses. Another 5 courses. And he gives you a very comfortable place to rest. Whatever he gives you, will that exhaust the principle of his presence? Okay, now I don't need you anymore. I have the whole reality now contained in my experience. Is it possible? Not possible. All the things that is given, that is interacted, is all symbolic of what the reality is. It's not a reality. The truth says that B'Sachem Havaya, even the worlds after they were created, are bottle b'tachlis. There's nothing there.
Nevertheless, one cannot stay at the host's house forever.
What?
You're welcome though.
To remain on
There
this
comes a time
call,
when you
press
have
1.
to separate from the host.
All right. If you were to stay in the host's house forever, and the host is going to walk away, you have the four walls. Again, you have nothing. It's inexhaustible. A human concept of knowledge, this is chokhmah. Chokhmah is such a quality in the human being that is actually representative of the truth of the neshama itself.
It's very encouraging.
What?
It's very encouraging because
Encouraging.
it means that a human being could overcome anything. I mean, if he is never living himself with four walls, you're always thinking about the reality of the host, and that is with him, and he relates to that, and he could overcome anything with Hashem. I mean, this is very encouraging.
Yes. Absolutely. This is what tshuva is all about.
This is
Tshuva.
It says Baruch B'Tachlis in the mashal that you're talking about, that you just emphasized, that the nothing that the host is going to give in terms of the meals, in terms of everything, is going to add up to the reality. Is that the point of Baruch B'Tachlis? In other words, that the creations are never going, they do not have that reality? I'm trying to understand what's the correlation between Baruch B'Tachlis and
Baruch B'Tachlis, to put it in, this is all Mishalim, because so here Baruch B'Tachlis in terms of those terminology would mean this, that when I have the host and I have the meal, I have two things. I have the host and I also have the meal.
Okay, if you have the meal, you have nothing. If you have only the meal, you have nothing.
No, if you have the host,
Right.
the meal does not add anything. It does not enhance my experience of the host this much.
Oh, okay. Right, but we said in the last time show. Okay, I mean, you
Go
said
ahead.
that the meal does enhance. In other words, it without the meal, in other words, something's missing. If you go to the host and he just sits with you, the fact that he actually, that you experience, it brings
Because
it,
we are incapable of relating to that truth directly.
but
So
if
we
you
need
could,
symbolic expressions.
but if you could relate to that truth,
Yes.
then there would be no need for anything.
That's right. The truth is that the host in our context is a very limited truth. It's not real. But if you're talking about the real God, the truth, Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 years and 40 nights, and he did not eat, and he didn't miss anything.
What is the chiddush in this mimer here? Ota Oka Salma. We're talking about the
What
same
is the
ohrot
chiddush?
and chiddush.
What is the chiddush in the fact that Shmuel is here in class? Wow, Baruch Chiyoni.
Well, it's a shy student cannot learn. I'm not trying to be foot.
No, Yaakov.
I'm trying.
You come once in 2 months. What is the chiddush? I
I've
learned the whole Torah before. Now what's the chiddush?
had this question for a long time. I've hesitated to ask it till now.
So why don't you come more often? Maybe you'll get an answer.
Well,
You don't need to come because I know everything. All I need to do is ask my question. I'm sorry, Shmuel. Completely out of place.
I mean, I do watch the shir in my online.
I'm sorry. I'm just revealing what you have put yourself into. That's the question. Out of the blue moon. All right. So this is it for this morning.
Yeah.